Alright, first of all, a massive shout out to Jay Halver for perfecting and sharing this build with us. Second of all, I want to warn you. This build has the potential to ruin all other builds for you. You'll be able to solo champion and legendary bounties with ease, out-sustain damage, deal up to 20k DPS and cover all boons except for vigor without the use of GODMODE protocols. You'll see me make plenty of mistakes in the footage as I was still learning how to play this build, but even that didn't deter me from going out there, picking up any bounty I could find and successfully completing them even. Usually I would add a few Heart of Thorns hero points to these kinds of videos, but they were over before they got interesting. And while this technically is a build for soloing champions, it has enough burst damage so you don't have to worry when you take it out for a spin and fight normal enemies. Now, Chrono builds might be daunting at first, so I'll cover how to play this by focusing on a few simple combos. But before that, let's check the gear, utilities and traits. And let's start with the latter. You'll want a Chaos trait line so you get regeneration every time you use a healing skill and increase concentration and expertise for as long as you have regeneration. Shattering your clones with your F2 ability will grant you Chaos Aura, which will grant you a random boon while inflicting a random condition on your enemy every time you are hit. And you get a 7% condition damage increase for as long as you have this aura. Those are only the minor traits, by the way. The major ones will grant you protection and stability when using a shatter, as well as a specific boon based on which F ability you just used. And to top it all off, another increase to condition damage, which is improved even further while wielding a staff. Next, we have the Illusions trait line, which reduces your Shatter skill recharge, grants you extra damage when creating an illusion, and further improves your F2 ability. Your major traits will provide you and your phantasms with permanent quickness and will further buff your phantasms damage based on the amount of might you have, while giving you might every time your phantasms turn into a clone. And lastly, we have the Chronomancer trait line, which allows you to use Continuum Split and literally rewind time. The traits themselves will help you maintain alacrity, give super speed to your clones when shattering, and resummon your phantasms the first time they would turn into a clone. For the utilities, we'll be mostly taking signets, but each of them has an active effect you need to know about. Signet of the Ether will heal you every time you summon an illusion and can be activated to reset the cooldown of your phantasms, which are on Staff 3 and Rifle 4. Signet of Midnight improves condition duration and inflicts blind while stealthing you when you activate it. Signet of Domination passively improves your condition damage and will stun your target. And the Elite MOA Signet will decimate any break bar. The only non-Signet utility we'll take is Mirror Images, which functions both as a stun break and summons 2 clones, which will help using shatters. The gear setup is simple. We want full Celestial with Runes of the Trapper and a staff and a rifle, both with sigils of Bursting and Torment, and our relic of choice will be Akeem. I wasn't using any food or utilities, but if you want to push this build to the limits, make sure to grab Meaty Asparagus Skewers and Magnanimous Tuning Crystals. So that's gear, traits and utilities covered. Now let's talk about how to actually play the build. Thinking of every single interaction and mechanic at once will get pretty overwhelming if you've never played a Chrono before. So instead, we're gonna focus on a few simple combos. Staff will be your ideal weapon to spend most of your time on when fighting difficult enemies, while Rifle offers great burst for low health targets or sustain when you're struggling to stay alive. When you're wielding your staff, you'll want to use your Phantasmal Warlock and reset its cooldown with your Heal Signet. In the meantime, you'll want to use your Staff 4, which has no casting time off cooldown, so you can maintain a permanent Chaos Aura. And always place the Staff 5 field before using Staff 2 inside for another application of Chaos Aura. Now, since we're playing a Chronomancer, we can actually cast more than 2 Phantasmal Warlocks by using Continuum Split. You'll want to use this ability with 3 clones active, so that you have the longest possible period of time to cast any ability before it ends. To do this, you can simply use Staff 2 and Mirror Images at the same time, which will instantly generate 3 clones. The way Continuum Split itself works is that it takes a snapshot the moment you activate it. It'll take note of your current position, HP and ability cooldowns. So if you use Continuum Split and then your Phantasmal Warlock Heal Signet combo, you'll be able to cast it during and again right after the split ends. This actually allows you to cast 4 Warlocks instead of 2 in a relatively short time. But let's not forget about Chrono Phantasma, which is our Chrono Grandmaster trait and resummons a Phantasm the first time it would turn into a clone. So instead of 2 or 4 Warlocks, we're now talking about 4 or even 8. As mentioned, Rifle strengths are burst damage and sustain. While wielding this weapon, you'll want to prioritize casting Rifle 4 for more phantasms and use Rifle 2, which generates a clone, and 3 of cooldown. Only use Rifle 5 when you need some extra barrier or when there's simply nothing else to do. That brings us to our Shatter abilities, and you already know how to use F5 Continuum Split. As for the others, make sure you use your F2 as soon as it's available with 3 clones active. F1 should be kept from reaching 2 stacks, but can be used with only 2 clones active, especially when you're wielding your staff, which generates clones slower than your rifle. F3 is primarily a crowd control ability, but can be used even without clones to help you maintain protection, stability and alacrity. And F4 will provide the same boons, while turning you immune to both conditions and damage for a short period of time. Lastly, when you see a boss with a break bar, make sure to use your 3 signets as soon as they're available. Once you get more used to the build, you could use Continuum Split and then your Elite, which will get its cooldown reset when the split ends, while also trying to use your staff combo I explained before. The great thing about playing Chrono is that a couple of relatively simple combos will set you up for success, but once you start mastering the specialization, your only limits will be your own creativity in combining these abilities. And there you have it. I managed to consistently hit 14 to 15k DPS and out-sustain a lot of mistakes I'm still making. J-Hover has pushed his build to consistently hit 18 to 20k, and I want to thank them one final time for sharing this with all of us.